All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Curtis Candy's GOOSHTASTIC podcast. Gonna have some fun today. Gonna be talking a lot of politics today. As always, there's always a chance that we may take a detour here or there in the conversations as we have a lively chat that goes on during our podcast. If you want to be part of these podcasts, are, as most of you know, recorded as a live stream at our YouTube channel. If you want to be part of the actual recording of these podcasts, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/Curtis the Spaz Gamer. Easier way to find us is just search YouTube for Spaz Boys Comedy, and you'll come right to us. Now, a lot of stuff this time of year, of course. There's never a shortage. Well, there's never, ever a shortage of political conversations to have, particularly when American politics is populated by so much buffoonery on both sides of the aisle. There's just unlimited amounts of material. What I want to get into first today, and gang here in the chat, I will, of course, be checking in with you guys regularly throughout the recording, throughout the podcast here to get your take on things. I want to start off today talking about Donald Trump's recent bump as far as his poll numbers, his overall popularity. It's rather significant that the other day Gallup's poll came out and had his favorability rating at 49%. A common perception seems to be in these type of things that, well, if you're not over 50, that's good for the opposition, because if you're at 49, that means they're at 51. But unfortunately, if you're on the other side, that is not the math. That is not how it fleshes out. Because he's at 49% has absolutely zero to do with what number of people that actually come to the polls to vote in November will cast their ballots for him. You'll have a significant number of people on both sides, whether you're taking the favorability ratings of Trump or whoever his Democratic opponent ends up being. You'll have a significant number of people who may not have listed them under their approved portion of the questionnaire, but still may vote for them dependent upon the competition. But here's something that, yes, and NupTup says Iowa caucus was a mess, and yes, it was. And we're going to be talking about the New Hampshire primary coming up, and of course a little bit more about the Iowa caucus. I think NupTup pretty much covered it right there. Mess pretty much covers exactly what it was. But I called something up the other day on the internet when I was researching all this, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Let me see, where was it? This is from Gallup's own website, and you can look it up right there. Do a Google search on it. Trump's favorability rating, November 1st through 6th, the Gallup poll, same poll that has him at 49% right now. The Gallup poll from November 1st to 6th leading into the election had Donald Trump at 34%. He won the presidency of the United States with an approval rating of 34% per Gallup. Now, that, again, as I said, the approval ratings only mean so much, because just because someone might disapprove of you as an individual, it doesn't mean they won't vote for you, because there's a really good chance in American politics that they will also disapprove of your primary opponent, your main opponent. But what I would be concerned if I was a Democrat right now is if he was at 34% and won. 49% could be kind of a scary number for Democrats. Attaboy brings up something interesting here. Also, the unheard majority, he says, that voted Trump won't do questionnaires. There's been a lot of conversation, and numbers do seem to bear it out, that I don't know if it's because of the stigma that's attached to Trump because of Twitter mobs and, the far left controlled areas of access we have to one another through social media. But it's been said that a lot of people just aren't willing to check that box in support of Trump. Could be. I mean, until they get into the actual ballot box. So that could be. But 34%. Granted, Hillary Clinton was not a popular candidate herself. I should have researched that as well. Her approval rating, I can't imagine, was much better than that. But that's still stunning. And given that he was at 34% now, and if the same polling organization, Gallup, has him at 49, and we certainly don't, to this point, have a Democratic candidate who's going to be setting the world on fire as far as popularity, which is why they can't separate themselves from one another. That would be I don't know. If I was a Democrat, I would be concerned about that. Vortex says, I'm convinced the wealthy Dem establishment prefers Trump and their millionaire tax breaks to Bernie and his pro 99% agenda. I don't think you're wrong about that. Probably not the wealthy Dem establishment as a whole, but certainly a significant portion of them. Yes, I think particularly Bernie, I think you're on point there. Bernie, again, would they take members of the mainstream Democrat, the centrist Democrats, or like you say, the wealthy Democrats, the ones who are actually running the DNC? Would they prefer Donald Trump to a socialist? Yeah, probably a significant portion of them. And Firewall Dragon says, the biggest problem with the Democrats is that they continue to fight with each other while the Republicans are all rallying behind Trump. That's absolutely true. That's the downside to going through this whole nominating process. You're right. They're all busy swinging away at each other, and it's getting more and more vicious. And we're going to talk about that very shortly here when we talk about New Hampshire and why I don't think New Hampshire is going to tell us much of anything. And it's in large part due to the infighting. And now you had Elizabeth Warren, just 2 weeks ago, and Bernie Sanders, who ideologically seemed to line up pretty well. You had them taking some vicious swipes at each other. And the worst thing for the Democrats, and this is interesting to me, because let's use Twitter's one of the most commonly used forms of social media, certainly out there. We all know that Twitter mobs are a thing, and Twitter mobs are comprised basically of far left groups, and even to a lesser degree, certainly lean more liberal than they do conservative. Now, what happens there is when the Twitter mobs get together to rag on Trump, which is, daily, or they just get together to rag on Republicans in general, it really doesn't affect anything much because everybody's aware what Twitter is, and it's not going to affect anyone on the right. Independents have long since learned the landscape, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. Today he had 3 scoops of ice cream, and so that hashtag will trend all day, and everybody outside of their own little echo chamber just looks at them and laughs at them, and I don't think they realize they're being laughed at, but certainly they are. But the problem is when it's Democrat versus Democrat, now you start with the Bernie bros. The Bernie Sanders people are after Elizabeth Warren, and the Elizabeth Warren people are after Bernie Sanders. On that form of social media, you're talking to all the people who are directly involved within your party. It does make a difference. Now you got that infighting. This is how you get Trump elected back again. Because when, let's say, Bernie gets the nomination and all the nasty things that were said by the Bernie bros towards Elizabeth Warren's group, and a lot of them go, you know what? As much as I hate Trump, I don't think they'll go vote for him, but they'll just say, screw that, I'm staying home. I'm not voting for Sanders. So that's really dangerous for Democrats when they get into those social media conflicts, because they are speaking to one another and the people they need to have united to beat Trump. Whereas when they speak out against the right or Trump in specific, nobody's really paying attention to them anyway. Luminary Prism says, the Bernie Bros argument annoys me. Completely paints the wrong picture of his base. Statistically, he has more women and people of color in his base than any other Dem campaign. Yeah, I heard that, Prism, the other day, that there was up in arms. People were on social media about it being the Bernie Bros because it's not bros, and as he said, it's women and people of color. I never took it to mean specifically dudes. I took it to be a colloquialism because it works together as phraseology. Bernie Bros sounds cool. I had taken it to be a colloquialism for those who support Bernie Sanders. Of course, in today's hypersensitive society, that didn't fly. And again, if you're a conservative, if you're leaning right, if you're planning on voting for the right, this is exactly what you want the left to do. You want them to have issue with one another over things as ridiculous as the moniker of Bernie Bros. Who cares? Yes, well, now you're leaving this person out and somebody else feels left out. And, we are made up of much more than just the bros. Listen, the vast majority of us, I would say, I fully believe, just took Bernie Bros, again, to be a colloquialism. It's just like saying, even though that's out of vogue anymore, is that if you got a large group going somewhere and you say, come on, you guys, let's go. You're not saying specifically they're all dudes. It's just a colloquialism. That's but that type of infighting is what's going to really hurt them when they face off, whoever it is faces off against Trump. Jacob, we're not going to be discussing feet pics during the during the podcast recordings. Yeah, I told you things tend to get a little off topic occasionally here or there. Let's see. I'm just trying to catch up on some comments here. Are you assuming their gender, Curtis? Attaboy. No. I would never assume anyone's gender. Exactly. That's what I'm doing the opposite by saying I thought Bernie Bros included everyone. I was assuming no one's gender. I just thought it meant anybody that supported Bernie. But again, those types of colloquialisms are not going to play in today's hypersensitive society. A little off topic. I know Octopus says, yeah, just a little bit. Let's see. Attaboy says, are you going to talk about the accused cover-up? You got to be more specific. There's a different cover-up being discussed every day. And I'm not saying this to be facetious. You have to be more specific for me. At which cover-up are we talking potentially? My take on Tulsi Nuptup? Obviously, I don't think she's obviously not going to get the Democratic nomination for president. As far as an individual candidate, she's got some things I like, some things I didn't like. She's kind of middle of the road for me. She's not. If she had gotten the nomination, I would give her a better look, up against Trump. Because again, as far as what I've seen from the Democratic side, I'm clearly voting for Donald Trump unless something outrageous happens. But I'm willing to look at anybody. Now, Tulsi, again, I haven't researched her as much as some of the others because I don't think there's ever been a point where it's really been thought for me that she could win the nomination. Now, if she were to run as an independent, as much as the Democrats have tried to spin that as, no, she'll grab some of Trump's voters and she'll grab way more of the Democrats' voters, that would really screw things for them. Let's see. Opinion on Andrew Yang. We went over him, King of Red Lions. We actually, in a podcast, a couple weeks ago, I went to his website because I wanted to learn more about him. We did it live on the podcast. Andrew Yang, as far as Andrew Yang, the individual, I think he seems like a good kid. I really do. I think he's genuine in his beliefs. I think his, UBI, his $1,000 a month for everybody is a horrible idea. And my biggest issue with him was trying to learn about him from his website, I think he needs to fire whoever is writing up his platitudes. Because I came away from that website thinking, okay, this guy's a lunatic. The things he tries to make a case, as you should do, for all of his beliefs, and he does it in manners such as talking about how automation is going to be taking over truck driving jobs. Now, again, I'm a retired truck driver. If automation ever took over the truck driving industry, it would be decades down the road. It's not even, that concept is not on the forefront. It's not on anybody's plate right now. There are so many things that are much more important in that industry, just in that trucking industry, starting with infrastructure, because truck drivers are affected by the porous infrastructure in America as much as anyone. The amount of money that would have to be involved and the potential dangers and the simple fact that it's just not something that's going to work on any level. As soon as those trucks have to be off major highways and make deliveries, as all trucks do, no, it's so what. But basically, what I'm saying is he went off in those areas a lot, and then he was talking about how his $1,000 a month is going to bring up IQ points because people that are under monetary stress tend to lose about 13 points on their IQ, which, even if it's true, is just a ridiculous thing to bring up simply because all that's saying is anytime that your mind is preoccupied with other things, your IQ slips a little bit. But to take and try and make it that target, it lost me, and then it started pissing me off, and that would have put me off of him. Did you hear about the FBI head admitting that there was illegal surveillance done on Trump? Now you guys might be coming up with something that slipped by me here. So this must be what the other commenter was referring to. Which FBI head? Current, past? Because there have been so many FBI heads that are that are deeply involved. If this is a new revelation, no, I haven't. Giggity Goo says, least you know what you get with Trump. Mayor Pete, though. That's going to be true no matter who the Democratic nominee is, in that Trump does have a little bit of an unfair advantage in that everybody knows he's boorish. Everybody knows he can be a kind of a douche. So there is no bar set for him that the others are going to have that bar in place. So if it does come down to a debate, if he does end up debating the Democratic nominee, he can get away with saying and doing ridiculous and mean-spirited things, and people go, oh, that's just Trump. And the frightening thing is if his opponent does it back, it's going to be like, well, why did you get right into the gutter with him? So, yeah, he's got actually an advantage because it's well established that he can be a jerk, basically. Okay, now, and I'll keep watching the comments. Anything political, again, we'll talk whatever areas, whatever angles you guys want to approach this stuff with. But now I want to talk about the upcoming New Hampshire primary. It's going to be very interesting for me and for a lot of people, but I don't think it's going to tell us anything. And the reason I say that is I believe that now you're going to see Mayor Pete cut into Bernie Sanders' lead. Bernie Sanders, if whatever you believe as far as the polls go, but through all the polls, had a commanding lead in New Hampshire. The revelation was made within this past week, Firewall Dragon says, about the FBI. No, and typically, obviously, I'm interested in this stuff. I try and stay up on it, and somehow that slipped by me. I will be researching it right after this, so I'm glad you guys brought it up to me. I'll be interested to hear exactly what was said and what was admitted to. But yeah, the problem with New Hampshire is just that New Hampshire is Iowa 2.0. Well, other than the fact that it's not a caucus, I think caucuses are stupid. I think a lot of you will agree with me. The idea of a caucus is just dumb. And this whole debacle in Iowa helps to point that out. Having people huddle in corners and stuff is ridiculous rather than having a vote. I don't like caucuses. But aside from that, you're talking Iowa is a hugely white population. New Hampshire is a hugely white population. And that demographic is very important because the candidate with the momentum right now is Pete Buttigieg. No question. He's cut significantly, again, if you believe the polls, significantly into Bernie's lead. There, one of the local pollsters, I believe it was I think it was one of the newspapers in the New England area, actually had Buttigieg polling 1 point up on Sanders yesterday, which, again, Bernie had double digits leads over everybody for quite some time in New Hampshire polling. But the problem is, now Buttigieg will probably make a good run at Bernie in New Hampshire, may even beat him in New Hampshire, but it really doesn't mean anything because Pete Buttigieg's issue is going to be gathering voters, getting support from people of color. The two candidates that do the best in general with people of color are Biden and Sanders. I think Sanders largely because Sanders does well with younger people, because those are the groups that still believe in the concept of free stuff for all. And from what I can glean from watching, I'm a nerd for watching polls and reading about the polls. It seems like a lot of the people of color poll that respond to the polls are younger people. So you could make that case, but the fact still remains Pete does horribly with them. And there's a lot of reason for it. A lot of people of color do not like the way he handled things as far as relations with people of color while he was the mayor of South Bend. There's a lot of people that have serious issues with it. So really what we're going to find out in New Hampshire is how much of a dent in Bernie's lead did Pete make, because this is where Bernie should have dominated, and Pete is going to have cut into that. I don't think we really find out if Buttigieg is a viable candidate until we get to South Carolina and then to their Super Tuesday, which let's see, I kept the dates up here. So we know we've got New Hampshire on the 11th, Nevada the 22nd. That's another caucus, and that's not going to tell us a lot either. But then February 29th is South Carolina. That's also D-Day for Joe Biden. I think Joe Biden is in serious trouble. But that will tell us a lot. Let's see how Buttigieg does in South Carolina, where there is a heavy population of people of color. And then, of course, March 3rd, then you've got Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, North Carolina. Then we'll really know for certain. But New Hampshire is going to tell us little to nothing other than how much of a dent did Mayor Pete make. Now, Nuptup says Biden took a big hit in Iowa. Will come forth in New Hampshire too. I agree, Nuptup. I do not think Iowa. Maybe I'll take a drink of water. Iowa. I do not think that Biden played this well at all. I don't think ignoring Iowa was a good idea. He hasn't done a lot in New Hampshire either. He said his firewall is South Carolina. Well, by the time they get to South Carolina, his firewall may be fully in fuego. It may be fully engulfed in flames. I think he's made a horrible misjudgment in not paying more attention to Iowa and to New Hampshire. I think Joe Biden is in real serious trouble. Thomas says, Dems will lose if they choose Biden-Hillary 2.0. Very possible, Thomas. But then again, you could really make a case for, it's not to say it'll happen, but you can make a cogent case for Dems will lose if they choose, and then fill in those blanks with any of the candidates. I mean, we could go down them one by one and make a strong case for how they could be defeated. You could be right. I still think that in a general, as it stands right now, let's see how things unfold, what Trump may do between now and then that's monumentally stupid or whatever. But I do think, as it stands right now, Biden has the best chance to beat him in a general. And the reason I say that is I don't think, again, Buttigieg, I think, is too weak with people of color. And a Democratic candidate on a national level absolutely has to be strong with people of color. And I don't think Pete will be. I think there's a real good chance that Trump may not get exact as the same numbers as Buttigieg would, but they would be so much higher than a Republican normally gets. I don't think he'd have a chance. Nuptup says, only Boston Globe poll had +1. It was Boston Globe. I couldn't remember which newspaper it was. This poll is known to overestimate Pete's numbers. Right, but Nuptup, look at all the polls. All of them had, the ones that are done routinely, the gap has shrunk in all of them substantially. They're the only one that had a +1 for Pete. Absolutely, I saw that too. But if you look at all of the polls, they're all moving towards Buttigieg. Because initially, not that long ago, it was always Sanders on top. It was Biden second, then it was Warren second. Buttigieg was always fifth or sixth. Now he's solid second everywhere and cutting into that lead. I don't like the idea of a socialist in the general. Well, you guys know I don't either, Arthur. I do not either. I don't like the idea of socialism at all. Dem primary may come down to Bloomberg versus Bernie. It could, Nuptup. You know what I think is going to happen there, though? Sorry, guys. I'm so glad I tuned into this podcast today. This guy sounds like he's underwater. I think Bloomberg is getting the decent poll numbers he is right now because of the big splash of having just jumped in. And the thing of it is, people are looking for another alternative. I believe, because again, a lot of us here, I would say most of us here, if we're in this stream today, enjoy following politics. A majority of people don't follow politics that closely. So I'm quite certain a good hunk of them are not aware that Bloomberg is a billionaire who is just using his money to try and buy the nomination. And I think when that becomes more public knowledge, if he does do well in some of the primaries and the crosshairs get put on him, I think that'll drop down. I think Bernie could beat Bloomberg just because of that. I think when people really learn who Mike Bloomberg is and what the deal is with him, I don't think his support will last. Excuse me. Let's see. Firewall Dragon says Bio sounds like the name of an anime side character. For those of you listening to the podcast that don't know, we're all also a bunch of anime nerds here. The kind that dies within the first few episodes. Well, when I get throwing my words together and just mixing randomly 2 words at a time, yeah, I could create something that could create any one of a number of marvels in one's mind. Luminary Prism says the DNC won't let Bernie win if they can actually influence things. Oh, absolutely. I agree with you completely. That's why Bernie can only win on the first ballot. His campaign knows that, and that's why they advertise pretending he's down by 10. Oh, there's no question the DNC does not want Bernie Sanders at all. I can say this, Luminary, you have to understand that's a reasonable stance for them to take just because Bernie is not a Democrat. Obviously, as the Democratic National Committee, they would like to have a Democrat as their representing their party in the presidential election. And Bernie is not a Democrat, doesn't pretend to be a Democrat. He's been an independent for decades. So, and he's been a Democrat, socialist Democrat, which that socialist word is very, very important for all his life. So no, it's not fair what they're doing to him and what they've done to him, but it's not surprising, put it that way. Arthur says, and this is a good point, Trump isn't surging, Dems are crashing and burning. That's a big part of it. And that's what it seems to me too. I think his poll numbers increase as things like the Iowa caucus debacle and things of that nature go on. I think people get disgusted with what's going on the Democratic side, and that just gives Trump a little bit more of a bounce. Let's see. Flame Enforcer says the DNC has all the influence. It will be a repeat of 2016. It's starting to look that way, Flame Enforcer. Now, what's interesting, and this is what goes back to what we were talking about New Hampshire, the interesting part of that is, so if the DNC doesn't want Bernie, and they don't, who do they go to as their flag bearer? Obviously, initially, it was Joe Biden, but how concerned are they about Biden getting trounced in Iowa? Biden's going to get trounced in New Hampshire. I don't know how he'll do in Nevada. Polling on Nevada is thin. I think he'll do better than the first 2. But who knows? By the time they get there and all the focus is on Bernie and Pete, who knows? He may not do better there. So the DNC might have to go to a different alternative to take out Bernie, which the most obvious choice then becomes Pete Buttigieg. Giggity Goo says, Bernie wins, Republicans hold Senate. What can get done? Oh, nothing. And the thing of it is, some of his bigger, grander plans, Giggity Goo, Bernie's this is, he'll have trouble even getting Democratic support on a lot of the big plans that once you actually flesh out what they're going to cost and you see what the tax bill is going to be, Democrats will be terrified to support it, because when people see that tax rate, it could get really bad. Firewall Dragon says Biden is the Yamcha of politics. Yeah, Yamcha is a not highly respected member of the anime community. Luminary Prism says the Dems actually have a good shot at winning the Senate. They're going to lose Doug Jones' seat, but they can win Iowa, Colorado, Maine. I don't think so. I'll be surprised. I I don't think obviously they're in any trouble in the House, but no, I don't think they win the Senate. I would be shocked. I've been wrong before, but no, I don't think those chances are as good as you're alluding to. I think when push comes to shove in those deep red districts, and with Trump's numbers on the rise, if they continue to be on the rise and the economy stays in good shape, I don't think there's any chance they lose the Senate. There is nothing wrong with having a social democrat is no good, says. That depends on your perspective. There's plenty wrong with it if you don't agree with the policies that would be enacted by a social democrat. Then there's a lot wrong with it. That's, I mean, that's a matter of opinion, as are most all things political. Let's see. Bernie is a social democrat, not a communist. I don't, or someone in the chat may have, I don't know who called him a communist. I think he's a close cousin to a communist. Social democrat is to me just about semantics. It's still about socialism. And again, I am not, I can break it down as simple as possible. I am never for giving the government money to have them redistribute it back to us in any situation that isn't 100% necessary. Any time that there is a free market option, I am in favor of the government looking out for the people on the people's behalf, which they have not been doing within that free market world, than I am giving the money to the government and asking them to redistribute it back to us. Social Security is a perfect example of it, which is why it always amazes me when we talk about socialism, that socialists wanted to bring that up as, well, you've got all these socialist programs already. Saying that your roads get repaired, your police, your fire is asinine, of course. Those exist as social programs, as government-funded programs, because there is no viable alternative as far as within the marketplace. But Social Security is clearly a socialist-style program, and it's been absolutely devastated because the government has never been good at running any big programs whatsoever. Any big major and there's no reason to believe they're all of a sudden going to become good at it. They're going to become good money managers, because that's what happened to Social Security, is they are horrific money managers and are very short-sighted and will take a little piece of the pie here, a little piece of the pie there, because there's always going to be plenty of pie to go around until the pie is gone. So that's why I am not in favor of any type of socialism. That's true. Arthur says Bernie has supported every communist nation, including the USSR. He honeymooned in Russia. Bernie is on record and on tape having a lot of complimentary things to say about a lot of communist leaders. Excuse me. Prism, speaking to another member, says it's not capitalism or bust. Capitalism is far from perfect. That's true. I don't think there is a perfect form of government. I think capitalism is by far the superior form when it's not corrupted. I don't think our problem in this nation is capitalism. I think it's the corruption of capitalism. I think it's how it's been perverted by politicians over the years. That's what I believe is the problem. I think as a means of government, I like the idea of capitalism. I don't like the idea of Big Pharma being able to run amok within government. I don't like the idea of, even for me, I'm somebody who believes in the concept of trickle-down economics. I don't believe that the companies on top, these major corporations, should be getting the tax breaks to the level that they are, because you're way beyond trickle-down. You're just piling on top now, and all that is not going to trickle down to the rest of us. So there are a lot of issues within capitalism, but that's because of the people involved, not the system itself. Arthur, capitalism has been corrupted by socialist policy. I wouldn't say that necessarily, Arthur. I think capitalism has been corrupted by corrupt people from both sides of the aisle. Listen, money is the go-to. We all know that. And politicians have never been shy about digging their fingers into whatever they can and taking from all the rest of us. I think that's the issue with our system of capitalism. But I believe that's all repairable and could all be brought into line. I don't believe you burn it down and try a new system that, to me anyway, you can see all the inherent flaws, or you can look at history of nations who have tried it and see all the inherent flaws. Let's see. Money makes the world go round. It does, TKD. And and unfortunately, some people are bound and determined that they are going to be the ones having the most influence in exactly how the world goes around. Going to talk about, now we're going to get to Pelosi the Ripper, because it would be we can't ignore Pelosi the Ripper. That was just too much great theater. We're going to take just a little side detour for just a moment. Hold your political comments. I'll get back to them. And ask you guys, any of you who might be baseball fans, Pete Rose was in the news again this week. And for those of you who don't know, Pete Rose was a great baseball player and a manager in the major leagues. He played, I know, in the 70s, may have started in the 60s through the early 80s. Played for the Cincinnati Reds, managed the Cincinnati Reds. And he is the all-time leader in hits in Major League Baseball history. He's also not in the Hall of Fame because he gambled on baseball while a manager of the Cincinnati Reds. Now, granted, he did gamble on his team. There's never been any accusation that he bet on his team to lose. He bet on his team to win. But is it wrong for the manager of a baseball team to bet on that team? Yes. I get that that's tawdry and that's untoward and everything. And excuse me, I understand that. But I think we have here a case where the punishment has far exceeded the crime, particularly in the current state where we've caught teams actively cheating, stealing signs, getting a huge advantage. The numbers, the statistics bear out that they were getting a huge advantage when they were pulling these cheating tactics. And two of these teams who were cheating went on to win the World Series. And the punishments there are seemingly going to be much less significant than Pete Rose being banned for life. Now, let me give you a full disclosure. First of all, I never rooted for Pete Rose as a child growing up as a huge baseball fan because I'm a Pirates fan and the Reds did nothing but torture the Pirates in the playoffs when I was a kid. So as a child, Pete Rose was the enemy. Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Tony Perez, all those Reds, they were the enemy. So I was not a fan of his as a kid. Many years later, before he'd gotten banned from baseball, but after he had retired, I saw Pete Rose. I used to collect baseball cards and baseball memorabilia, so I would go to a lot of, a lot of the card shows. I saw Pete Rose at a card show, and I can tell you unequivocally he was a complete asshole. He just conducted himself almost like it was an annoyance to be there, had a very haughty, arrogant attitude about himself. Most everyone I talked to at that specific show were just appalled by him. It was unfortunate to see. I was there I was there for the show, for the memorabilia, not for Pete Rose, because again, he wasn't a favorite of mine. But it was almost disappointing to see some of the Reds fans and how disappointed they were in meeting their icon and their hero. All that said, it's absolutely insane that he's not in the Hall of Fame. And it's not fair that they're dragging this out, and if he ever does get in, they're going to be putting him in posthumously. He played the game really hard. I mean, he was a quality baseball player who got more hits in his career than anybody else in history, and it's by quite a significant number. And he's not in the Hall of Fame, and that's ridiculous. To have banned him from the sport for a number of years, I get it. Okay, so he bet on his team. What does that really... You're going to try and win every game anyway. Some people have been saying, well, you don't understand. That means that the games he bet on, he would just use up his whole bullpen to make sure he got the win or whatever. Well, so what? That's some manager's strategy anyway. There are a lot of managers in baseball who don't subscribe to the concept of saving your bullpen. It's win each game. Take each game as a standalone and win each game. There's something to be said for that. But certainly, that is less of an affront to the game than actually using technology to cheat, steal signs, and give your hitters a huge advantage and go on and win the World Series. So Pete Rose needs to be in the Hall of Fame, and he needs to be in the Hall of Fame now. And the fact that he isn't is just absolute absurdity and makes baseball look petty and stupid. Firewall Dragon says, rest in peace to the 2 soldiers who were killed during that attack in Afghanistan. Indeed. It's always difficult to read about the loss of soldiers, anyone's soldiers. It's unfortunate that things have to be the way they are, but that is also unfortunately the history of humankind. Glenn Aker says, 100% unban Pete Rose. Houston Astros got a lighter punch for cheating during the World Series. Exactly, Glenn. That's right where I am. Fallen Angel says sports gambling is legal now, so who cares? And even if sports gambling had been legal, they wouldn't want him betting on baseball as a baseball manager. But again, it's a little untoward. So what? I mean, so ban him. You know, I would have thought a couple-year ban was fine. A permanent lifetime ban from baseball is absolutely wrong. I'm happy to see so many people agree. TKD Saint says, I think Pete Rose has been wrong. Yeah, I'm glad to see that you guys agree with me on that. It's just ludicrous that the man who got more hits in Major League Baseball than anybody in history is banned from the game. It's crazy. All right, so we got that. I know that was a hard a hard turn. I didn't want to say right or left turn because it will be insulting to the people who are on the other side of that political aisle. So it was just a hard turn away from what we had been talking about as far as politics. But it had come up during the week, and I just wanted to put that out there. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Come on. I mean, Major League Baseball, get your shit together. Put the man in the Hall of Fame and stop the crap already. It's just ridiculous. Charlie Hustle. Yes, that was his nickname, Fallen Angel. Charlie Hustle, because he did. He played the game hard. Whether he was an asshole or not, and by my personal experience, he clearly was, has nothing to do with it. Firewall Dragon says Terrell Owens was treated the same way in the NFL. To a degree, Dragon. Yeah, I don't think it was as severe as what happened to Pete Rose, but yeah, I do think he definitely got hosed by the NFL. All right, and our last topic we're going to talk about today, let's go right into that, and then the rest of the podcast, I'll be taking your comments, and we'll be running with those, so you can go back to whatever topic we had talked about. Pelosi the Ripper. We all saw what happened during the State of the Union address, and Nancy Pelosi, as Trump came to the conclusion, very visibly ripped up the speech that he had presented to her, because he gives a copy to the vice president and to the Speaker of the House before his speech begins, and it was dramatics. Of course it was. I mean, I'm not ragging on Nancy Pelosi for that. Politics are theater. They are dramatics. So she was trying to make a point. Donald Trump had just made huge points with his base. She was trying to make points with her base. Didn't work out as well for her, I think, as she would have liked, simply because a lot of people, and even those in the middle, saw it as, well, okay, that's fine, but in the context of that speech, or in the duration of that speech, Donald Trump spoke about that Tuskegee Airman, the 100-year-old gentleman who was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen, and even seeing him there, like, put a lump in my throat. I just think that's so cool. This Tuskegee Airmen are just such deserving legends. But then, and his great-great-grandson is there who wants to be a member of the Space Force, and bringing a military member home to meet his family while they were there. It's theater, but it's fun theater, and it's patriotic theater, and I think it might have been a bad move as far as anybody's perspective that isn't in her specific echo chamber. I think it might have been a bad move ripping that up because of that. Again, and we know what she was trying to show there, and she was trying to get her Twitter moment, and she did, but I don't think she thought that through carefully. And then what I like, and I kept a couple of these articles, I hadn't realized this had happened. Then Pelosi's people came to Facebook and Twitter, and they asked them to delete a Trump video. And I'm not going to put the video on camera because I'm not sure of the copyrights. It's on, although you can see it if you want to find it. It's easy enough to find on Twitter. It's on Donald Trump's feed from February 6th. And looking at the video
is one
here,
of the last survivors.
Basically what they did is they took images such as the Tuskegee Airman is right at the beginning of the video, and as he stands up and waves to the crowd, they cut back to Pelosi ripping up ripping up the speech. And this is the crux of the entire video. They go to each patriotic, sentimental moment, show that moment, and then cut back to Pelosi ripping up the speech. Now, Nancy Pelosi's people went into a minor tizzy about this and came to Facebook and Twitter and asked that it be taken down. Now, I want to get you some quotes from here. This is quoted in a CNBC.com article. Facebook and Twitter declined Pelosi request. You can find it right on CNBC. Pelosi's deputy chief of staff, Drew Hamill, he wrote, "The latest fake video," and I'm quoting, "the latest fake video of Speaker Pelosi is deliberately designed to mislead and lie to the American people. And every day that these platforms refuse to take it down is another reminder that they care more about their shareholders' interests than the public's interests." I don't think that was a good move. I think that makes you look even weaker. Andy Stone, a Facebook spokesman, replied, and he said, "Sorry, are you suggesting the president didn't make those remarks and the speaker didn't rip the speech?" Hamill fired back at him, "What planet are you living on? This is deceptively altered. Take it down." Well, of course they're not going to take it down, because by deceptively altering someone or something, what they're saying is that means attributing something to someone that they didn't do. It means fake news, basically. In this video, you might even be able to make a case if they had just taken one of those incidents, say the Tuskegee Airmen, and then shown Pelosi ripping up the speech. But since they did it repeatedly and showed the same clip of Pelosi ripping up the speech, it's very obvious to anyone with any reasonable sensibilities that they're trying to make a point, that Pelosi ripped up a speech that contained this, that contained that, that contained the other thing, because there's no way that you would believe that there's any continuity to it, that Pelosi was doing it at the same time that the Tuskegee Airman, for instance, was speaking, or was taking his applause, because they keep showing the same shot of Pelosi as the response to every element of it. It was just basically the Republicans saying, these are the things that were discussed in this speech. Here's what Nancy Pelosi thought of the speech. So, needless to say, neither one of them took it down. Now, there's some more to that. Let me catch up on some comments here. Edgar says, apparently doctors and doctors and experts around the world saw Pelosi's clap, and all of them agreed she needs to take penicillin immediately. If I didn't recall actually seeing that clap, and I am not going to attribute that type of clap to Nancy Pelosi, but I'm not a doctor. Arthur says, don't have to like Rush, but the man's dying of cancer. They could show a little goddamn grace and be happy for him, but no, instead they mock him. Yeah, see, I'm with you on that, on the sentiment part of it. As far as it's not necessary to mock the guy at this point. He's not going to be with us that much longer, apparently. I don't believe in giving the Medal of Honor at all. I think that was way over the top. He was, okay, to the conservative cause, he's been a loud voice for many decades. But I just my personal belief, I don't. There's been a lot of Medal of Honor recipients over the years that presidents have given out that I don't agree with. This is one of them. But yes, I'm not big on that, no matter which side it's on. You can lose somebody from the far left, the people that I disagree with. I'm not going to celebrate them getting cancer. That's just not my thing. But yes, I agree with you, Arthur. I don't think that they should be, that I don't think he should have gotten the Medal of Honor, but I also don't think that it shows any level of class at all for the people that are ripping on the guy. Slanderous spoken, that was a meme. Exactly, Nacho. And again, the way that meme was constructed, if you have any sensibility whatsoever, it's an obvious meme because, again, when you're showing the same shot of Pelosi responding to each one of these individual events, it becomes obvious what happened. But basically what happened with the complaint is Facebook and Twitter both told them, yeah, that's It's not, for just the reasons we described. They said it's not going to happen. We're not taking it down. And I guess Pelosi's camp really, really had some serious panties in a bunch over it. But I thought that was funny. Again, it's just my way of thinking. If I was in Pelosi's shoes, I would just want that to go away. It didn't end up being effective the way she thought it was going to be. I assume what she thought was, anybody that isn't on the right side of the aisle is going to stand up and applaud that because she was being a strong woman again, and she was showing the Donald that he can't get away with this, and it just didn't pan out that way. So when you swing and miss, let it go. I think taking that fight on afterwards just brings it up more and just brings more laughter at you. That's my personal take. Every once in a while, again, you take a big swing and you miss. Let's see. Now I'm just going to go to the comment section, see where we are. He has said horribly racist things. Luminary Prism says so. I'm assuming we're talking about Donald Trump saying what racist thing. He has said some objectionable things. Some of the racist things he gets accused of, I don't agree were racist, but I don't know what you're talking about specifically. I heard about that, and Firewall Dragon says pre-ripping the pages didn't help her case. I hadn't seen that. Actually, in a live stream, because we live stream at the YouTube channel here, aside from when we do podcasts as well. And in another live stream earlier this week, the gang had pointed out to me, I hadn't seen that apparently there's video of Nancy Pelosi pre-ripping the pages. It does cheapen it a little because it takes away any thought that this was, Trump coming to the end of the speech and Nancy just couldn't take it anymore and it was a spur of the moment there type thing. So it was a pre-planned dramatic act. It was done for dramatic effect. Pelosi knew that right as the speech ended, obviously all the cameras would be on Trump and by extension they would be on her, and she took her shot. I don't think it worked out the way she wanted it to. Let's see. We should. Animus Tell him says we should vote in Jeff Dunham. Yeah, Peanut. Listen, Peanut makes a lot more sense than the politicians a lot of the time. I'm not entirely against that. Somebody quoted Snopes on something. Yeah, that's never. Well, we do know there's no question that Snopes has a heavy liberal bias. It doesn't mean that everything they write or every conclusion to which they come is incorrect. But yes, you do have. It's just like anything else in media. You do have to take things with a grain of salt when you know. So whichever side it's on, when you know that the organization has a really strong political leaning. Let's see. And Michael says Trump could touch a kid and his voters and the Senate wouldn't turn against him. No, I don't agree with that. I don't think there was. I think what made it easy for the Senate to acquit Trump, believe me, these people are keen on polls. You have to remember throughout that whole the whole impeachment process, Trump's approval ratings have been rising. All the polls taken throughout the duration of the impeachment process showed the impeachment itself as being way down the list of voters' concerns. It just wasn't a blip on the radar. The Senate Republicans knew it was completely safe to say that, as many of them said, that what they think the president did was unsavory and he shouldn't have done it, but it didn't rise to the level of removing him from office. That was an easy thing for them to say because the polls have borne out that take as being the take of a lot of Americans. And further, with the whole impeachment process not being that important to voters, it was an easy path. It was an easy path. Michael, oh yeah, they would, especially his voters. They love to protect their dumbass choice. Well, see now, Michael, when you just degrade into, okay, this person's a dumbass, that person's an idiot, it weakens the whole conversation. And when you go out and you say, well, yes, this is what people would do in this situation because my feelings are hurt, it's not really a conversation. It's just lashing out because feelings are hurt. Let's see. The entire impeachment was a farce, Maz says, and now the Dems are panicking because the Republicans are starting a formal investigation into Hunter Biden. Dems just keep fucking things up. Yeah, Maz, it's almost unfortunate. We didn't bring this up earlier. I think Joe Biden has been really a lot of what led to his downfall. Granted, he screwed up by not having a larger presence in Iowa and New Hampshire, but I do think the whole Burisma thing has hurt Joe Biden a lot. And that, as much as, and I'm not a Biden fan, but it's just true, I don't think that's fair. Hunter may have been doing something he shouldn't have been doing. What Joe said on camera was unfortunate, but Joe Biden is prone to gaffes. I just don't personally believe what I'm trying to say is that Joe Biden is a bad or corrupt man. But I think there's enough hints of corruption in this whole situation with his son that it may be the factor that cost him a chance at the Democratic nomination. I really believe that. It's a no good. How can you even stand behind the Republican Senate when they voted not to have any witness accounts? Why? Okay, I'll ask you a question. Why didn't the Democrats, while they were putting together the articles of impeachment, I mean, if you're going to play it for one side, play it for the other, why didn't they wait for that to play out in the courts? All they had to do is go through the courts, and they could have forced all those people that they wanted to hear testimony from would have all been forced to do so had they played it through the courts. And they said they didn't want to wait and that they had a strong enough case to bring forward now. So why did the Republicans not call the witnesses? Because they felt like they didn't have to. Why did the Democrats not take it through the people involved? Several of the witnesses involved had said, I'm not going to testify unless the court orders me to. So if they'd have gone through the courts and they had been court ordered to respect those subpoenas, to respect being called in front of Congress. So again, you want to say, okay, well, why didn't they do this? But the other side had every bit as much opportunity to do it as well. So why didn't they do that? Why didn't they wait, let the courts play out and call them? Why? Because they felt that the longer they dragged this out, the weaker their case with the American public became, and it tied up too many of their members that need to be campaigning, maintaining their seats, so on and so forth. Oh, that's true. Animus tell them politicians in America are more interested in mudslinging than doing anything useful. Having higher expectations is folly. That falls clearly into the category of really unfortunate but true. Yeah, that's. I'd like to have a good, strong case where I could show you a lot of examples where that's not the case, but yeah, you pretty much got that one. Let's see. Let's see. Lixbox says his rates, meaning Donald Trump, his rates keep rising because the liberals and Democrats keep giving people reasons not to vote for them, and Trump is the only Republican option worth voting for. Yeah, I believe that, Lix. The first part of what you're saying there, as I've said, I think a lot of the rise in his numbers is a direct result of not having a strong Democrat opposition. And then again, things like the Iowa caucus debacle and the Democrats all ripping each other to shreds right now, I think that is playing on it absolutely just as much as anything else. Actually, I think there are better Republican options out there, a number of them, but you won't see them because, again, he's the sitting president, and the Republican committee is not going to back someone else in a primary against him. So all the Republicans who are good candidates have to be looking for 2024. For me personally, and leaning right as I do at the moment, I always reserve the right to change that because I'm definitely an independent. But leaning right at the moment, there are certainly Republican candidates I would rather have running than Trump. It's just not going to happen in the current situation. Excuse me. Let's see. Luminary prison. Okay, now we got conversations going towards one another. I'm trying to pick up on them. Kyle, it is literally a trial. Trials have witnesses. Every impeachment of any federal official has had a witness, and that's fine. And that may be the case, Prism. But the fact of it is, they didn't have to bring witnesses, and the Democrats knew that. So why not get the witnesses on record while the ball was in your court? That's what I'm asking. Why didn't they do that? They could have gotten those witnesses. They could have gone through the courts, forced them to appear, and gotten all that testimony on record. Let's see. Luminary Prism. The GOP canceling primaries is really gross. Like, obviously they won't win, but still shouldn't fuck with democracy like that. Not say the DNC is. I was just going to say, yeah, I don't think that for any Democrat currently, I wouldn't be throwing too many stones about the way that the primaries are structured. I get it, though, because there isn't a real challenger, and it's a waste of money. I mean, it may be unsavory to some people, but it's understandable. It's spending money on something that is clearly and most certainly a foregone conclusion. Lifer, right off the top of my head, I like Nikki Haley, ex-Secretary of State, and ex-Governor of South Carolina. And, you know me, and names coming off the top of my head. Nikki Haley's at the top of my list, but there are some other Republicans that have been around for some time that if there was a primary and they had run, I would have looked into them. I was like Marco Rubio, for that matter. I was supporting Rubio in 2016. I think Marco Rubio is a really decent guy. So there are others out there who again, neither side, Republican or Democrat, aligns with my personal beliefs right down the line. That's why I'm an independent. But there are Republicans out there that, like Trump, I would vote for because their way of looking at things aligns more closely to mine. Let's see. I just don't agree. Luminary Prism. The whole primary process is going bad, but still they shouldn't ever cancel a primary election. I get why they're doing it, but it shouldn't be allowed. I disagree. I don't think it's a big deal at all. When you've had a couple of primaries, or even when you have polling, and we know polling isn't accurate, but when the polling is showing mid 80% point leads, which all of it does, at least that for Trump, 85% is usually well within the margin of error on any poll. And I don't have a problem and that doesn't matter which side it's on. I don't care if it was Democrats or Republicans. I wouldn't have a problem with them canceling it because, again, it's just a waste of time and money, and I'm not big on that. Insert name says, did you hear that Trump is considering making classical architecture mandatory for new federal buildings? No, I don't know how I'd feel about that. I haven't heard about that. Let's see. And that's fine. From your perspective, it's wrong. I just don't agree, Prism. I don't think it's a big deal at all. We know Bill Clinton slept with a kid. No, we don't know that, though, Team Xbox. We don't know that at all. And Bill Clinton is somebody that Bill Clinton, like everybody else, I'm not somebody. I do not like Hillary Clinton. I don't have a problem with Bill Clinton. I think he was a really decent president. I think Bill Clinton had, as many politicians do, as many people do, some morality issues. But until there was more proof of something unsavory that went on with him and his relationship with the man who did not kill himself, then no, I don't buy that. And now we know they were friends. We knew he rode on the plane, but in fairness, a lot of really rich, wealthy, influential people did because Epstein was just connected to the gills. I hope it's not true about Bill Clinton. Does it look dirty? Yes, it does. It doesn't look good. But we don't know exactly that anything took place. And that's just unfortunate all the way around because you guys know how I feel about kids in general anyway and protecting children. So let's see. Jeff says they wanted to impeach from day one. Well, that's true, Jeff. I mean, we all know that between social media and then you had, oh my gosh, what's the representative's name that said on the day she was elected, now we're going to impeach that motherfucker. Oh gosh, I can picture her face and her name just won't come to me. Again, those who listen on the podcast, post-concussion syndrome does that to me a lot. You'll see me blanking on names a lot. That's why I have my gang here at the in the comment section to bring the names back for me. But yes, and that hurt their case. That certainly hurt public opinion. That hurt the court of public opinion when you're saying since the day he was elected, hey, we're going to impeach him. And then you finally do. It's just like, well, yeah, you've been saying you're going to do it all along. Doesn't mean you got a case. That hurt them. I really think that hurt them. Team Xbox says, who would you like to see be president? Of the people running, I'm going to vote for Trump. Again, there are people out there I would rather see taking up that mantle. But of the people that are running for president this cycle, it would be Trump. Let's see. Luminary Prism says, expanding social programs is a benefit from my perspective. Robbing the choice of an elected official is different. Oh, okay, it was a conversation with someone else. I didn't see that. Yeah, and again, that's just a difference of opinion, Prism. I don't believe that expanding social programs, which is, in essence, exactly what I said, giving the government your money so they can redistribute it for you, I think is always a horrifically bad idea. Luminary Prism says Pelosi is great at doing grand gestures that mean nothing. It's really cute at how the Republicans are throwing temper tantrums over it. Matt Gaetz is suing her for it. So fucking funny. I agree. Well, in fairness to Nancy Pelosi, you could replace her name with politicians. They're all great at doing grand gestures that mean nothing. And that includes Matt Gaetz too. And that's exactly what he's doing. Not that we agree on. Pelosi's gesture was grandstanding. What Matt Gaetz is doing is clearly grandstanding. It goes on all the time. That's why we have to try and do the best we can to get through the theatrics and down to the meat of what people actually believe and what they will or will not bring to the country. But Rashida Tlaib, yes, she's the one who said impeach the MF. Thank you, Jimmy. That hurts in the court of public opinion. That hurts your case for impeachment when you do bring it, clearly, when you've been saying it since the guy got elected. It just by nature it does. It's unfortunate they did that. Yes, her name was completely escaping me. And that was a bad gaffe on her part. But again, it's just the same stuff we're talking about. It got her a lot of clicks. Got her name in the papers, got her name all over social media. This is what we all, and it's on both sides. Like I say, Matt Gaetz is up there right with Nancy Pelosi and all the others. This is what we have to plow through as citizens when we're trying to desperately somehow figure out exactly what politicians stand for. That's the one thing I will give to Bernie Sanders. And you guys know I do not like Bernie Sanders and his positions at all. However, Bernie Sanders has been consistent. Bernie Sanders is vague on how he's going to pay for things. That annoys me. But he'll tell you right down the line what he believes and what he wants to get done. He hasn't wavered, as have most all of the other Democratic candidates. So he does have that. If you like that in a candidate, he does have that going for him. It's just that I don't like pretty much anything he's proposing. However, he is insanely consistent. It's right down the line. Let's see. Lexbox says, "Oh, you mean Rashida triggered by the Trump speech, Tlaib?" Yes, that's her. Prism says, "I just want the Trump era far behind us. It's created chaos and discourse. I just fucking hate the Democrats. I hate the Republicans. I hate. I just want to pass it all." Well, I wouldn't say that he created the chaos and discourse, because the chaos and discourse had been brewing in this country for decades prior, and it's come to a head. Has he fanned the flames of it? Sure, absolutely he has, without a doubt. Would we still be on this path without him? I still think so anyway. Maz says, honestly, unless Trump keels over from a heart attack, I'm calling the Trump 2020 win now. Only question is, who will be the Republican nominee after Trump? I gotta say, I right now I would agree. If you'd talked to me, and we did, when we talked about it several months ago, I really thought Trump was a one-termer. It's like, okay, all the Democrats have to do is not be crazy, not do anything stupid, get a good, solid nominee, and it's over. But they haven't been able to do that. And I think now their dysfunction has me thinking that, again, several months ago, I would have put it at 60-40 the Democrat, whoever the Democrat is, wins. If I had to make odds today, I'd say 52-48 Trump wins. Now, that could change tomorrow because who knows what Trump and or the Democrats might do. But that's the feeling I get right now anyway. Right. Anna Mormania says, I agree with you, Curtis. Bernie is quite consistent as a dedicated socialist. And it's true. I mean, if you're looking for somebody that doesn't flip-flop, it is Bernie. Now, I pretty much despise everything he stands for down the line, but he's not going to say, okay, I want Medicare for all, get rid of your private insurance today, and then tomorrow say, well, no, you can keep your private insurance and we'll tweak this. No, he's going to stay the course. Again, I don't agree with any of it, but he is one of the few politicians that bulls forward, got one thing in his mind, and he's going to stick to it. Connor says, politics is boring and it's a waste of time. It does get boring. I don't think it's ever a waste of time, but yes, it does. It does get boring without question. Let's see. Michael Jarrett says, let's keep it real. Bernie Sanders watched Venezuela go bankrupt under Che. It was from the most successful democracy in South America to a bankrupt third world country. That's true. That's absolutely true. And now they'll tell you, well, no, we're not talking socialism. We're talking democratic socialism. The biggest difference between democratic socialism and socialism is the word democratic. It's all leading towards the same path. Excuse me. Little Criggery says, do you think there will ever be a neutral president or an independent? Especially in today's day and age, nearly anyone who is neutral isn't very popular. Yeah, I don't know. Just for the reasons you outlined, it's so hard to get any traction as a truly middle of the road independent. It's nearly impossible. I don't know, Gregory. I don't know. I'd like to say yes, because I think that would be really, really good for our republic if that was a viable option. But I don't know. Emerald Octopus is in. Hi, Em. Let's see. Luminary Prism says, Bernie is an honest, good man. One of the only ones you'll see in Washington. He's firm on his beliefs. Agree or disagree is a rarity in Washington. Yeah, again, I don't agree with him on anything. And I want him as far away from positions of power as potentially can be. But yes, he's absolutely sticks to his beliefs at all times. Not unless, good point, Mozmaker says, not unless news media companies begin allowing independents into debates. That would take it a long way. But what we need to do, though, too, Moz, and everybody, I'm sure you guys will agree, we need an independent candidate that isn't inherently and immediately crazy. It just seems like every time we get a viable independent candidate or third-party candidate, it seems like, to me, just this is strictly my personal opinion. You guys can agree or disagree. Most all of them have been whack jobs. That I can't remember his name. The ex-governor of New Mexico. They're just wacky. Firewall Dragon says, "Are you going to try and catch any of the new XFL? It's actually pretty good." Yeah, I am. I haven't yet, but my plan is to try and catch some. Yep, I'm going to try. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for being a part of the live stream. Thank you very much to those who are listening on the podcast. I'm going to start putting these podcasts up at a regular time. They will go live to your favorite podcast source and to the link in this description over at Buzzsprout. And I'm going to start putting them up. They'll go up every Sunday. I'm in Eastern Time, U.S. Every Sunday night at 9 p.m. That way, people on the East Coast, if you want to hit them when they come out, that's fine. But they're there for everybody Monday morning. And we'll see how things go. If the podcasts keep doing well, we'll add a second podcast each week. Maybe we'll have one that's strictly politics, and then we'll have one that's strictly pop culture and all other things. More of our Free-for-All Friday type of streams that we do here at the YouTube channel where we can talk about everything and anything. But let's see how this goes. If the podcasts do well, we will add another one. Thank you all so much for all the input. Again, the input from you guys is what makes these podcasts fun, what makes them entertaining, what keeps me in line, what reminds me of all the different names that the chair shots have taken away from me. So thank you for hanging out with me. We'll be recording again. The plan is on Sundays. Sometimes the times may vary, but just come over to the YouTube channel, search Spaz Boys Comedy in the YouTube search. It'll come right up. just subscribe to the channel. And hopefully if Susan, the CEO of YouTube, decides to send you, you'll get notifications whenever we're going to stream. Record them on Sunday. They go live Sunday night. Might be adding some more in the future. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me, for making these podcasts so much fun. Thank you to all the gang here at the channel for making the conversation so lively and so much fun for everybody. I'll talk to you guys really, really soon.